All right, guys, this is your mini lecture for week 4. I think it's week 4. Yes, week 4. Over chapter 6 and chapter 9. Again, make sure you listen to the whole video. Make sure you answer what I want you to answer for the assignment. But again, this is really to help you guys kind of understand course information. I will tell you my least favorite chapter so far is chapter 6. I think it's confusing. I do. So let's try to get some of this cleared up for you. Chapter 6 is looking at the idea of communication. Now, when I taught full-time at NIU and now where I'm teaching full-time at Rockford Lutheran, I do an entire year class on basic human communication, an entire year. And sorry, that's annoying that I just did that during the video. So when we look at this chapter, it's so short and it's so general and it doesn't really tell you a lot. Now, I'm not going to try to lecture an entire year in this short video, but, understand that communication, what this chapter's goal is to get you to think about your communication style, what you do, because you do the same things all the time. Are you the person in a discussion or a conflict or an argument that walks away and slams the door? Are you the one that, puts do not disturb on your phone? Are you the one that turn off your phone? Are you the one that leave them unopened on, a text or snap or, whatever it is? Are you that person? Are you that person that needs to talk everything, excuse me, over and over and over for hours and hours and hours? Are you the one that denies there's a problem? Are you the one that gives in? Whatever it is that you do, you have a pattern to your communication. And it's not just communication during a conflict, not at all. I think the biggest takeaway from this chapter is a couple of things. It's win-win that we're going to talk about in a minute, but it's also this first figure in your chapter. So again, I'm looking at chapter 6, that figure 1, getting to the core of the problem, the roots. I think what I try to teach my students and my own children, and I try to remember, and it's hard to remember, is that you have to stop and think about what is behind the problem. So if there's a conflict, and let's say you react hard to something. Okay, you reacted hard to something, but what's behind your reaction? Okay, you're frustrated because somebody did something, but what is it really about? Because when we start looking at problems in relationships, what the reaction to something or the argument or how you deal with a problem is only part of it. You have to also be aware of what your unmet needs are. And so your first question for your assignment is, I want you to stop and think about a time where you argued with somebody. And it needs to be somebody significant. It's not, the person that, rung up your order at, Portillo's, but someone significant in your life. When was there an argument? And the argument, why were you frustrated? Why were you frustrated in that argument? And I want you to tell me what was going on, what the argument was about, and don't worry about how you come off in that, because we're all human. I'm not judging that. But what did you do? Did someone come home late, or did your boyfriend, girlfriend, significant other not text you back, or did they, drop you and go out with their friends, or whatever it is? And how did you react to that? And then I want you to, and this is hard. I want you to stop and think about what was really behind your reaction. Was it really that they went out with their friends, or was it that you felt left out? If they left you unopened, because that seems to be a thing lately, and it was for several hours. Okay, you got frustrated with that, but why did you get frustrated with that? Were you feeling left out? Were you feeling ignored? Were you feeling like something else was going on? What was behind it? This is a hard question for you to stop and really do some self-evaluation. I don't need pages on this. You can write as much as you want, but tell me what the argument was about, how you reacted to it, and then why you reacted to it that way. Not what they did, but what was behind your reaction. Hopefully that makes sense. If not, email me and we can do a quick Zoom and kind of talk through it. But it's addressing this issue of figure one, looking at the core root of a problem and where things come from. And okay, you reacted to a situation, but this is the other challenge that my students always have. No one makes you feel anything. Did you hear what I said? No one makes you feel anything. Nobody made you get angry. Nobody made you slam the door. Nobody made you cry. You cried, you slammed the door, whatever. But those were choices. You have a choice to not slam the door. You have a choice to, you can make a decision to not cry. I know that's hard, but you can make a decision to not attack them. You can make a decision to not yell at them. You can make those decisions. So that's one of the hard things to think about is, how you are reacting to things, because nobody stood there and said, you must cry or you must slam the door. We make choices every day in how we communicate. So this is really, this first question really kind of looks at what's behind how you react. And yes, this figure talks about the obvious and the less obvious, the obvious being your emotions or your reactions. You got mad and you threw a towel across the room. Okay, that's a reaction. But what was really behind that? Okay, you cried, but what was really behind that? What were you feeling? Why did you feel that way? We're not excusing behavior, but we're taking responsibility for how we think about problems in our relationships and addressing what our unmet needs are. And again, this is a short kind of icky chapter, but if you're able to sit back and go, okay, they went out with their friends and I was left, unopened all night and they never answered me back. I didn't feel like I could trust them. I felt like they were ignoring me. I felt, sad, whatever. Those are the things then that you talk with them about. And you say, when you left me unopened for 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, whatever, I felt this way. When you changed our plans and went out with your friends, I felt this way. And that's a whole other conversation. But, this is the basics of trying to get to the root of what our problems are. Now, again, remember, I'm looking at the computer over here where I have the chapter up. That's your first assignment. You're already doing a win-win kind of assignment this week too. And we talk about the win-win model. This has to be, in my opinion, the most confusing model about how to have a healthy argument I have ever come across. I think this is horrifically confusing, and I don't really think it tells you a whole lot. Okay, so, you have some values, whatever those values are of yourself, and most of your disagreements come between, your values and how you feel like you experienced some injustice, that you were not treated fairly or whatever. And that's your emotional response. Okay. But I don't think figure two tells you anything about how to have a healthy argument. I think a lot of times people think that conflict and arguments are a bad thing. They're not if you do them in the right way. You're going to have a conflict. You're going to argue with your significant others. But how can you work through that argument in a healthy manner to not attack, to not destroy a relationship? And, this figure two talks about problem resolution strategy, and we'll come back to win-win in a minute. Agree is a gift, live with the differences, or change yourself. Okay. But, You can read about those. It talks about agree as a gift. Okay, I'm going to agree, but that's my gift to you, is I'm going to agree to whatever it is that you want. Okay, basically you're just giving in. Or what was the other one? That you live with the differences. Okay, there are certain topics in this relationship that we're not going to talk about. I love my father dearly, but we could not be more different when we talk about politics, or even religion. There are topics my dad and I don't talk about. We know that because he will never see my side, and I try to see his side, and I try to listen. But he will never stop and look at something from another perspective. So we just don't talk about it. That's what live with the differences means. Are you just going to say, okay, we're not going to discuss these topics. This is a topic on which we disagree. This relationship is important enough, so we're just not going to deal with that issue in this relationship. You can choose to change yourself. And I think all of us in relationships, always have improvement that we can do, and things that we can change about ourselves and how we approach different situations. Win-win comes across sometimes as being well, you have to give a little and they have to give a little, and it's a compromise, and yes, but it's this idea of how can everybody come out of this issue, this conflict, this frustration? How is everybody happy? And it's going to take some flexibility. There might be topics, and you'll see this in your video, where there's something that you think you want, but yet you have to decide, is this really important to argue about? Win-win is about stopping and negotiating. So my daughter, she's 16. She was stressed last week because her boyfriend had asked her a while ago to be a part of their 4th of July events. And her best friend said, hey, my boyfriend's going to be gone. We're going to go to the lake house. Why don't you come to the lake house with us? And all of a sudden, my daughter was right in the middle of, oh no, the two most important people in her life want her at the same time. So how could she stop and think through some things? And, she worked it out, but, you have to stop and kind of say, okay, this person, I'm going to go spend time with this person, and then I'm going to go spend time with this person. And, everybody gets time, and everybody is happy, and she's happy, and he's happy, and her best friend's happy. And, everybody gave just a little bit, but in the end, everybody is satisfied with the outcome. So that's really what kind of win-win is talking about. Doesn't mean that somebody else always gives in. That's a totally different conflict sort of skill. But it means, how can you work together and say, okay, is this really important? Is this really important? Or, what is important? So when she was looking at her 4th of July issue, okay, so what was the most important thing? Well, it was being with her significant other on the 4th of July for various reasons. He's leaving the next day for 2 weeks for vacation. It's a day where doesn't have football practice or baseball practice. So it's a free day where, other days of the week they work around, an hour here or an hour there in the summer, because he has so many sports things he's doing. And, that was the center. That was why one of the reasons why she wanted to hang out with him. But, she stopped and thought about it, and she's like, well, I could go to the lake with her best friend for a couple of days before that, because her boyfriend's going to be gone in a tournament. And so all of a sudden it was like, okay, so I'll get the day where the boyfriend is not doing anything and we can actually hang out all day, but I can still go with my best friend on the days that the boyfriend isn't available, and we can have our time. So it worked. Nobody, I think, felt like they lost in that. And that's really kind of where you want to go, or try to go, with win-win. A couple other things in there, it talks about how you form a couple. And one of the interesting things about this is when we talk about being a couple, many times people think about a couple and they think about, especially when there's children in the relationship, that the most important people in that family are the children. They're important, but the formation of the couple, or the we part, if you look at figure 3, it talks about the nuclear family. The we has to be the parents. It has to be the husband wife, the wife wife, the husband husband, whatever it is. Sorry, my child just texted me that she was leaving. Because the center of that nuclear family, the mom, the dad, the two moms, the two dads, whatever the arrangement is, but the center of that nuclear family is built on the relationship that the significant other couple has. Now, your textbook uses, husband and wife. The nuclear family, so that picture shows the husband and wife, and it shows 2 daughters and a son. But the center of how that family is going to function is around the relationship that the husband and wife have. And that's something that many times is not really seen. It's like, well, the kids should be the most important. Yes, the kids are important, but if that family is going to be successful, the center and the focus and the work has to happen between the couple. Okay, so, read through this chapter a little bit. He gives you a really long scenarios in there about problems, a problem and a problem-solving strategy. And, that's where he gets in about halfway down. He starts talking about the different ways to problem solve, like to agree is a gift. It's not really problem solving. It's making a problem go away. And that's what I think I'm frustrated with this chapter, is that, it's agreeing is a gift. It says this is to be done only on very unique circumstances. Agreeing as a gift is risky because to do this, it means that you are willing to give in on something important at your root level. Exactly. And yes, I understand, what the author is saying about it's just not worth the battle, except that then you have someone with unmet needs who's not expressed those unmet needs, which is just usually then going to fester and become a bigger problem. So, so anyway, read through that chapter. Don't worry too much when they're like, he goes into this whole thing about arguments and how you understand them from a disease level. I kind of think that's a little goofy. I mean, I get what he's saying, but I think it's kind of goofy. So anyway, he gets into also some things about, marriage and how we have to put work into the marriage, how, we have to, I think one of the biggest things that marriage counselors and therapists will talk about with their couples is that they will tell the couples that they need to go back and start dating again. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to start everything over, but what it means is you have to put in that effort to go do things together. And many times therapists will tell you, when you guys go out on a date, go to dinner, go to the park, go to the grocery store, it doesn't matter. Go do something together, but the kids and the house are off limits. Go and spend time. Talk about what's going on in the world. Talk about what's going on in your life. Talk about the positives of the other person. Get back to that first date kind of stuff where, you can spend hours talking to them about their values and their beliefs and different things, and get back to that. Get back to building that couple. Okay. So, and then it talks about as well some gender communication things, which is very stereotypical, yet we still tend to, in general, fall into some of those stereotypical patterns when we are communicating. When I jump to chapter 9, if it will actually do that, hold on. Chapter 9 talks about marriage and long-term relationships. And, there's a lot of very personal kind of down to earth discussion in this chapter. It's, again, it talks about the we and how that has to be the center of the family, which is true. And, it's talks about how people need to work together, how there are some decisions that, you know, one spouse can just make. There's some decisions that another spouse can just make. There are some decisions that the couple should make as a couple. You know, there might be maybe one parent is the stay-at-home parent, so they're going to make the decisions about you know, when the kids need to go to the doctor, but maybe the other person is the one that works outside of the home, so maybe they make decisions about other things or whatever. So that's kind of what they're talking about with that. I know it gets into some different types of marriages, and it talks about polygamy. Polygamy is the general kind of category that says you are marrying more than one spouse. And then it gets into polygyny, more than one wife, and it's polygamy, more than one wife, or excuse me, more than one husband. You know, so it kind of talks about some of that as well. No, in the United States, it is not legal. Yes, it still happens. But it is not something that is sanctioned. It was an old school Mormon thing that, you know, fundamentalist Mormons kind of took with them. It's, yes, it's still out there, but obviously it's not something that we encourage, because it's not. You know, it talks about matriarchal and patriarchal families, and it talks about you know, just some numbers in general about the increase and decrease in marriage. And it, you know, just looks at a lot of different things about dating, about marriage, about, you know, being married in contrast to being single, you know, and looking at some of the things that come along with marriage. For this chapter, you only have the one question. So make sure that you answer that. And then for your second part of it, it's not really a question. Just tell me one thing that you liked or learned from either chapter 6 or chapter 9. I don't care what it is, but tell me, I found this really interesting and this is why. Or I found this chapter not very interesting and this is why. That's really all that we're looking at for this mini lecture. All right. All right, guys, that's all I got. Reach out if you have questions about anything. Otherwise, have a good day.